for now, let's sit back, relax, and enjoy some Reddit stories. I'm the owner's stepson, not your personal server. Until about a year ago, my stepmom owned a restaurant plus cafe hybrid. My dad and I would often run errands or go shopping and unload the car for her. So I knew all of her employees and a lot of the regulars, since I spent so much time there. The people enjoyed me being there, and I enjoyed being around them, sometimes ensuring a bigger tip for the waitresses. But sometimes the customers aren't so nice. One day, I ran an errand for my stepmom, and after delivering her stuff, she told me to grab some cake and soda from the counter in the front. I thanked her, greeted some people I knew, and went behind the counter to grab my stuff, and sat down at a table. Now, I get that going behind the counter may have given off the idea of me working there. My clothing was completely different. After sitting down, I started reading my book and eating my cake. Shortly after, this woman tapped me on the shoulder, hard. I turned around to see this woman in, seemingly, her late 40s. "Why haven't you served me yet? And why did you take food for your own? That's illegal." I gave her a smile and told her I was related to the owner and just grabbed a bite to eat before going back home. I hadn't had any sleep the prior night, so I was already annoyed at anything and everything. She stared at me and said, "Well, if you're related to the owner, you must serve me, as I am a customer." "Ma'am, I'm a customer, just like you." "No, you were behind the counter, therefore you're working." I sighed and just got up, asked one of the waitresses if she could grab me a box from the kitchen, and left, with the cake in my backpack and the lady still screeching for me to come back and serve her. Here's the question though, guys. What kind of cake do you think it was? Because I'm thinking it was like a chocolate cake, but what do you guys think? Manager mistakes my brother for an employee. This was a lot of years ago, and when I was in the US Air Force. I was visiting my family and decided to take my brother to the military club for a drink. Now, at the time, the Air Force was really pushing club membership to the point where there was a place on the cover sheet for your annual review that identified if you were a club member. It was only $3 a month, but basically mandatory. Our players in this will be CM, moron who ran the club, B, brother, and me, proud new member of the lowest level of enlisted man. I and my brother arrived at the club and grabbed a table, and I went to the bar to grab beers for us. Returning to the table to relax, I was approached by the club manager. "Excuse me, may I see your club cards?" "Sure," taking out my card. "I'll need his as well," indicating my brother. "I'm his guest." "You still need a membership as a military member." "He isn't a military member, he's my brother." "Does he have an ID?" "Yes." My brother hands him a driver's license. "This doesn't prove he's not in the military." My brother, thinking he's smart, "What ID says not military? I can't allow him to stay if he's military without a club card." We finished our beers and left. I could really tell our club managers were not the brightest bulbs. This sounds like some communist state where it's like you are military until you're proven to not be military. Teacher is upset because my dad doesn't work at the Chinese restaurant. A little backstory. I am Asian and my European parents adopted me when I was a baby. My parents are both Caucasian, so there is absolutely no resemblance at all. At all. My dad is a tall, elder, white-bearded man. A few years ago, when I was in high school, a lot of people would go to this fairly popular, yet very cheap Chinese restaurant near the school. One day, my entitled biology teacher, E.T., comes to me. "Hey, I met your dad at the Chinese restaurant. I told him the food is delicious." "Hey, I don't think that was my dad. You must be mistaken." "I'm sure he is your dad. You definitely look just like him." I bear no resemblance at all with my dad, and he works at the hospital, not at the restaurant. "What are you saying?" "Nah, you must be kidding. It was your dad." Of all the people here, I think I would know what my dad looks like. Are you ashamed because he owns a Chinese restaurant? You should be proud of your parents. I'm telling you this. This is not my dad. You have mistaken this Asian man for my dad based only on the assumption of what my dad should look like because I'm Asian. You should not address a teacher this way." The bell rang, and I was free of this painful conversation. To this day, I believe he is still convinced he met my dad and I was lying. You know what's going to be great? The parent-teacher conference, when the guy actually meets the parents and realizes he's not going to be Asian. He's just sat there like, oh. I'm not robbing this house, and I'm not a gardener either. This is my own house. We moved into a new house a few years ago. 2 days after we get settled in, it's a gorgeous day, so I'm out tending to the garden. If you live in Louisiana, you'll realize that nice days are few and far in between. It's hot and muggy. About 30 minutes after I start, this woman walks beside the house. She compliments my garden and asks how much my services cost. So I told her, "Ma'am, I don't do services." About this time, my husband walks out and puts something into the car. So, all perfectly fine, right? No. This woman decides to call the police and tell them we are robbing the place. I don't know if her watching my husband caused that thinking as he was pulling stuff out of the house and into the vehicle or what. We were new neighbors, moved in like a few days prior, so you'd think she would have seen us moving. 3 cops show up a few minutes after she left. We didn't know she called the cops. They pull up while both of us are wondering what the hell happened. Maybe someone we knew passed away or our kid got arrested. Neither. They said we were called in as an active burglar. We had to prove it was ours. She didn't even talk to us about it or mention robbery, although I guess in the moment she just lost it. People are crazy here. I could just imagine how that conversation went down. Yeah, that's right, we broke into this house and then we were like, the garden doesn't look very nice. I'm going to do some gardening. I don't work at this hotel. A year ago, my daughter graduated university. We were staying at a hotel that night before. I was all dressed up and we just had a nice dinner. I was the only one in a dress. I was talking to some others when I heard a high-pitched huff behind me. I didn't pay attention to it. I was in the middle of a sentence when my arm is grabbed and I'm spun around. Now, there's a very angry Chinese woman pointing at me and touching my chest. She's speaking a mixture of English and Chinese. What I can understand is this, and forgive me because I added in the words you left out, and I'm just essentially translating to English what she said in Chinese. Like, every third word was Chinese. "You listen to me right now, you Chinese slur. I have been waiting for you to stop talking to them for 15 minutes. I will have your job. Do you know who I am?" I'm really sorry for that accent. She shuts up for a second, so I say what I've been trying to. "Ma'am, I don't work here. I don't care who you are. Go ring the bell and they'll come to see you." She kept screaming in Chinese purely then. I can't translate what I don't know. I asked my husband if he wanted to go back to the room, and he agrees. We're halfway to the elevator when I hear another scream and my head is now hurting and bleeding. This crazy woman threw her heels at me. I go down and my mother-in-law grabs me. My father-in-law and husband both run at the woman. Father-in-law puts her on the ground and husband restrains her. The woman is maybe 5'5" and 130 pounds. He is 290 pounds and 6'8" or so. She wasn't going anywhere. Hotel security restrains her this time after a few minutes. They call the police and she is arrested. I had to go to the hospital for a concussion after to make sure I don't pass out, as there's a lot of blood. I don't know what happened to her. She was arrested, but that's it. Graduation was fine. I had a gauze on the back of my head during it. My hair covered most of it though. At first I thought she was exaggerating when she said, "Oh, I've got a really bad headache and it was bleeding." And then I was like, "Oh, it actually is. Oh no."